Welcome to Rauta's Underground Trio episode 125. Once again, we have three different albums from three different parts of the world and a little bit different styles as well. First, we have Black Whispers from Costa Rica, which you cannot probably tell by the logo. I was trying so hard to figure out how do you say Black Whispers in that logo, but honestly, could not. Then we have Neverfade, new wave of Finnish heavy metal with their debut album. And then we have Veldraveth from Venezuela. So this is Black Death. Now we go from worst to best according to my open opinion. So once again, feel free to disagree. Let's go. Black Whispers. So this Venezuelan band has been around for 2013 and they have put out already a few albums. Nothing big has happened. So this album Dusk is gonna change it. Well, unfortunately not. Basically, this is very, very kind of a crude, grim, homemade, melodic black metal. When I say homemade, I don't literally mean it, but let's be honest about it. This overall production sounds a little bit more like let's do it in a rehearsal place and let's hope it will do the trick. This four-piece of a band is approaching their black metal sometimes with a lot of high tempo, around mid-tempo and all that stuff, but nothing is exactly too aggressive, nothing too violent. It's more like in the middle of things, meaning it's not really the fastest, not the slowest, but, the kind of let's add a little bit up-tempo with the music. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember that this was compared to somewhat, a little bit on the side of, let's go for DSBM kind of a stuff. I mean, it's kind of a melancholic, it's kind of a dark and all that stuff, but let's be honest about it, it doesn't really do justice to the whole genre. There are parts where it kind of gets darker, but then again, lacking the absolute, sinister feeling or despair or anything like that is making this like, what are you exactly after? It's not really the darkest. It's definitely not the rawest. It's not, majestic or symphonic or anything like that. Leaving this to figure out what are you after. And when you have the kind of a production that's not really supporting the given style, meaning with melodic black metal, you often need kind of a better sound. So it's kind of supporting at least that given stuff. Nothing is happening. And for me, it feels like a very, very demo-ish overall feeling with the given stuff. It's not like it's bad, but let's be honest about it. There are lots of bands with, their first or second demos, which are very much like figuring out what they do. But this band already has a few albums out. So for me, it's still very, very much a work in progress. Unless you have a soft spot for Costa Rican black metal specifically, I don't even know if there is really a reason to check it out. For me, unfortunately, it's quite mid. Then we have this Finnish heavy metal newcomer, Neverfade, which is partially made of some earlier band, Crimson Day, I think was the band, which this features some members of. And now they have decided to go self-financed with their CDR Digipack. This runs for about 50 minutes, and indeed their style is heavy metal. They call themselves new wave of Finnish heavy metal. I can't believe it's kind of sticks because it's not really like, you have your next tarot happening here. Musically, this is melodic. It's very much, supporting the idea of traditional heavy metal. It's not really the kind of a British heavy metal, but then again, it's also melodic, touches the epic things. It's almost like let's pick a piece of that from Manowar, maybe another one, and then combine that with kind of a British approach. So not as ballsy, not as, let's go with the motorcycles and Thor's hammers and all to do the Manowar trick. But then again, it's not really, very German-like, very Teutonic, even if there is a little bit of that too with the power metal blinks and all. But I guess in general, you could go for new wave of British heavy metal, but with the Finnish style. The vocalist is skilled enough, but kind of lacks charisma. And while the production is a little bit like, yeah, we had to do that with a budget, it does its job just okay. So what's the problem? Well, songwriting isn't exactly that great. First of all, there are lots of parts where it just feels you're having a lot of fillers. Some parts are even like a little bit kind of dumb, or at least subpar, but there are parts where it's just like, okay, actually this has potential. Like it was this song, The Blade Part 2, which are like, hey, I actually like this, let's ride into the battle kind of stuff. But a lot of the stuff, I mean most of the stuff is really, let's do our first heavy metal demo kind of a thing. So my point here is, if you would have just only picked the best parts and maybe created a 3 songs demo, maybe it really could have been pretty good. Now it feels like it's just overextending its day with too many tracks, and the last track is something like 11 minutes almost, and it's like you are not that skilled songwriters just yet. So a lot of stuff here is kind of buried by the very, very basic filler stuff, which makes this, as a result, sound a very, very mediocrity in terms of heavy metal. I wish these guys good luck and all, but this first CDR self-financed copy sounds like, yeah, it's your demo, but you decided to do it full length. Then we have the best of the pile from Venezuela, Veldraveth, which is more on the black metal side of things, but I'd rather call it Black Death, because there are parts where it kind of gets a little bit death metallic. Now, it isn't exactly the kind of Black Death that you would call war metal, so let's make that comment there right away. But yeah, this is kind of a traditional take on that. Let's like a little bit death, let's like a little bit of black, let's put it in the mix and let's do it. So it's kind of a dark and all, but what it lacks is exactly some kind of a punch, some kind of level of violence, some kind of a overload of darkness, which puts this in the very, very mid of the road. I mean, it's like, it's still lacking something like, for instance, really good songs, really great riffs and all, but also the kind of a heaviness that is supposed to come with, death metal territory, and also the kind of darkness which you kind of might expect from black metal stuff. The vocals are somewhere between death metal growly and black metal raspiness, and while it's not bad, it's not really, unfortunately, delivering the blows as expected. So what kind of audience this is for? Maybe those who love either the modern take of black death metal like Behemoth, but go with the lower budget, or just, more underground spirit. This is nothing is fundamentally wrong here, but it's just one of those albums that is very, very easy to forget, because nothing here is outstanding. Nothing here is putting them stand apart from the rest. So it becomes a part of this gray mass, which doesn't really annoy you, doesn't really, tickle your brain in a interesting fashion, but it's just something like, you listen to it, then you forget it and move on, unfortunately. So if I'm sounding here a little bit negative, is because none of these albums are outright bad, but none of them are exactly good either. A lot of mediocrity with 3 different albums of 3 different styles. Yeah, sucks to be that guy, I guess, but sometimes you have a lot of mediocrity in your pile and you can't really help it. Then again, not every album can be really that good either, so there's that. And if you don't take my word for that, which you probably shouldn't, go for the links provided and find them in the description box. You will find the links to band's social media, as well as some musical links to a Bandcamp and whatnot. And for instance, even if Neverfade wasn't really, with this full album on Bandcamp, because it's the only one of year 2025 in this pile, you can find it on Spotify and other streaming services. So do yourself a favor if you are fancying some of these bands and start listening. Now off you go and stay metal.